The first award is being presented to the Honorable Robert G. Doumar, Senior Judge, United States District Court. And this is the Public Service Award, recognizing leaders in justice and equality. And he is going to be introduced by his old friend in law, Mr. Jerrold Jerry Weinberg.
I promise you this will not be as serious as Dr. Rosenberg's talk. It's an honor and a pleasure to introduce Judge Doumar. He, for many years, has been known, just reflected in the glory of a prominent family, best known for ice cream cones. But he has still had a wonderful career. And I'm not going to give you all the facts. There's been too many accomplishments, too many awards to even go through, but I will try to just hit a few highlights. Judge Doumar was born in Norfolk and has lived here his whole life when he wasn't in either Charlottesville or Korea mostly. And he was a star in school. He went through the parochial schools in Norfolk, was valedictorian of his class at Holy Trinity High School. He finished in 1947. He received his bachelor's degree at the University of Virginia. From 1950 to 53, he was in law school at the University of Virginia. His academic career there lit up the sky. He wasn't just a brilliant academic record, he was on the law review. He was in the moot court competition. He went to the nationals. He finished fourth in a distinguished law school class that finished in 1953. He could have had any job in America that was offered to a young lawyer. Instead, he then had to go in the Army. He served as a first lieutenant in Korea. He came back and he went into private practice. The highlight of his life, well, he started a law firm. It went on for some years, Doumar, Pincus, Knight, and Harlan. And Mr. Pincus and Mr. Knight are here tonight. He finally outdid himself. He's always been an overstriver. And the real home run that he hit was when he married Dot. Then that got even better. They have 2 children that are off the charts. And they have 6 grandchildren. They don't even look like grandchildren. They look like Central Casting sent them over. His law firm, he was there for about 25 years. Every honor that you could think of came to him. He was president of the Norfolk Portsmouth Bar Association, and it's a small world. He succeeded Bob Nusbaum. He was president of the Virginia Conference of Local Bar Associations. He was a member of the Virginia State Bar Council. And he wrote the charter and founded the Tidewater Legal Aid Society. That was back at a time when it wasn't a given that services would be provided except on an individual basis, legal services for people who could not afford lawyers. Of course, they couldn't have afforded lawyer Nusbaum's fees, so there was a huge need for this. And that Tidewater Legal Aid Society still exists today. He not only organized it, he wrote the original charter for it. He was its president for the first 2 years, and he continued to serve it thereafter. His law firm grew and grew. He got involved in not too many, but so many activities I can't even begin to mention. But one that was interesting, this is all, you get all this off the, Google it, get your iPad out. He went to 3 different Republican national conventions where he met a fellow named Ronald Reagan. Then his accomplishments and his background were so outstanding as a trial lawyer that he was appointed by Ronald Reagan to be United States District Judge in 1981. It's just a coincidence that Senator John Warner, who recommended him, was his classmate at Charlottesville. But he deserved it anyway. Among his other honors, he received the Brotherhood Award of the National Conference of Christian and Jews in 1982. In 1985, he received the Outstanding Citizen Award of the Knights of Columbus Council. In 1996, he took what's known as senior status, which means he doesn't have to go to work, but he goes there every day anyway. It's a labor of love. You might understand that under our Constitution, his salary can never be cut. And he goes to work because it's a labor of love. He wants to do justice. He wants to do the right thing. He wants to see that the right guy wins the law case and the bad guy loses it. His outstanding thing was referred to by Dr. Rosenberg, for which he became famous. I was impressed when I see his name in a New York Times editorial. He had this Hamdi case. Hamdi was, I don't want to repeat what's already gone into, but Hamdi was born in the United States, which made him an American citizen. He lived all his life in Saudi Arabia. He was captured with a gun in Afghanistan in the early days, shortly after the 9/11 bombings. And his father filed a petition. The government's holding this guy incommunicado and doesn't let anybody see him, and a lawyer should be allowed to see him. The government's position was he was an enemy combatant and he didn't get a lawyer. Judge Doumar, really with enormous courage, ruled that the government, not only did he have an absolute right to a lawyer, but that the government had to provide evidence as to why they were holding him in detention. The case was controversial, but as a previous speaker mentioned, it was affirmed finally by the U.S. Supreme Court. Judge Doumar was right, of course. At least I think he was, and so did the Supreme Court, so that's easy. The high note that I would like to end this on, I once heard a speaker say, I'm not a coloratura soprano, but I still like to end on a high note, would be with this quote of what Judge Doumar wrote in the Hamdi case. We must protect the freedoms of even those who hate us, and that we may find objectionable. If we fail in this task, we become victims of the precedents we create. We must preserve the rights afforded to us by our Constitution and laws, for without them, we return to the chaos of the rule of men and not of laws. It is my pleasure to give you Judge Doumar.